So, Amber, thank you for taking time in your busy schedule leading up to Tuesday's primary to talk with us here on the State of Water podcast. Curious if you could just tell people a little bit about yourself and your background and what you're up to right now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Seth, for having me today. It's an honor to be here. And yes, so my name is Amber Fellows. I am a city council member in the city of Ypsilanti, and I am a mayoral candidate for this primary on August 4th. So if you live in Ypsilanti, check it out, amberforthepeople.com. I am a longtime resident here at about 25 years, and around 2011, I started becoming involved in community organizing, and by 2016, I became very serious about it because I was experiencing some issues with rising rents in the area and some aggression from landlords. And I started a meeting with other tenants and talking about our issues. And we went to the city government and found that they were not doing anything. We're not responsive to these kind of like rising costs of living and the pressures that were making us some of us fall into homelessness, especially people with compounding marginalized identities were being impacted the most. So that is when I became a little bit frustrated and very motivated to kind of push through a lot of changes in the city government, even outside of being on council. And then I ran for mayor in the nonpartisan race in 2022, lost that one, ran for city council in 2024, won that one by 10 votes, and I'm now running for mayor in 2026. And one of the things I've done in the last year and a half, 2 years, big focus of mine has been to meet community needs, but also fight this big data center fight we have here for U of M Los Alamos data center proposal, and I can talk about that more at some point.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, first of all, for being willing to run for office and stand with your people. We're always encouraged when we hear stories of people who move from being an organizer to attempting to be a public official. And we, as the State of Water podcast, we feel we have a responsibility to question people running for office and to
Mhm.
try to educate the public and educate candidates and help the public understand where people running for office are standing on clean water issues.
Mhm.
The Clean Water Campaign originally was called the Clean Water Candidate, and we were looking for clean water candidates out there and casting lines to see who was interested in talking to us. So we appreciate you being willing to talk about these issues, and I think data centers are a great place to start. And I think that new site-specific data center with Los Alamos and what's happening in Ypsi, and I know that U of M is a part of that too, and some of our colleagues with the Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition and Sierra Club and many other groups in Southeast Michigan have been involved in the resistance to that. So, could you tell us a little bit more about what that fight is like, where things are at, and how folks can get involved, and especially where you stand and what you hope to do as potential mayor?
Absolutely. So, yes, this particular data center fight is likely to make national news soon. I have talked to different journalists around the country who say that Ypsilanti is the front line of the data center fight because of the nature of this data center and because of how well we've been able to regionally coordinate at this point, which is both encouraging and discouraging in a way, because I wish other communities were doing about as well as we are, because it doesn't feel, like we've defeated this situation. But the current status of things is that there was this was proposed more than a year ago at this point, maybe a year and a half ago, as a collaboration between Los Alamos, which is a federal contractor, weapons contractor for nuclear weapons, and University of Michigan. And it would be a 90-10 collaboration where 90% of it would be a AI data center for top secret confidential work for Los Alamos, and 10% would be for U of M research. And they proposed it in South Hydro Park, which is a public park area in the Ypsilanti Township, which is an adjacent community to the city. And in addition to that, when most people learned about this proposal is when the House and State Appropriations Committees granted $100 million in taxpayer funding for this project. Additionally, we learned that because of the Whitmer administration's changing of rules in the area, um, this kind of created a sweetheart deal for data centers to come in because they don't have to pay any state use tax, which is what funds our public schools. And because Los Alamos nominally or attach themselves to U of M, which is kind of like nominally a state agency, state institution, public institution. That means they don't have to follow any local regulations, no zoning, and they don't pay any local taxes either. So it's just like the
Mm.
worst of the worst. It's like they won't contribute anything to the local community or economy, and they will take so much from us. So the last thing for me is a personal connection to it because I'm a Japanese American first generation. My family is still in Japan. I go visit often. And the fact that this is a nuclear weapons modernization and proliferation program is pretty just eerie to me that this is a part of my personal history with my grandparents surviving the war and atomic bombings, and now it's going to being attached to my personal history in Ypsilanti, and so this is a bridge too far. After learning about this proposal for our community, there was a lot of movement organizing that sprung out of it and locally. We have a very active ecosystem of organizing support here. And I went to a couple of popular assemblies that were organized and heard from 100 different people, different aspects about this proposal. And with collaboration from movement folks, uh, wrote a resolution called Mayors for Peace, which affirmed the city of Ypsilanti's commitment to peace, formally opposed the U of M Los Alamos data center, and joined us in a global initiative called Mayors for Peace, which is for the total abolition of nuclear weapons. And that passed unanimously in October. And
Mm.
then a few months later, I decided to write a moratorium for data centers in the city of Ypsilanti. And it was the first 1 year moratorium in the state. In that resolution, we also put pressure and asked both the Ypsilanti Township and the Ypsilanti Community Utilities Authority, which is our water authority, to also enact 1 year moratoriums. And so those community authorities have since enacted their own moratoriums, which puts the pause on both the U of M Los Alamos Data Center proposal and the Augusta Township proposal. So both AI data centers are paused for 1 year while we study impacts on other communities, look at different legislative strategies, and work together.
Wow. Well, that is good news, and it's encouraging. And I know the fight is not over, but thank you for your work on behalf of the people. And I feel like this concept of fractals and precedent-setting community efforts sometimes can be the most inspiring thing because what we do at the hyper-local level tells a story that can be replicated or can inspire other people. Um, Going back to Los Alamos, like the way that you broke it down for me, what it's for, and the fact that it's just the community bearing all the risk in a public space, and that a lot of the way these things are sold is specifically around the tax benefits, but those don't exist here. How is this being sold? Like, what is the propaganda?
Just U of M's, good reputation, but I feel like because since this proposal, U of M's reputation in Ypsilanti has really tanked. Because they haven't been offering anything.
Absolutely.
So, and there has been
Yeah.
a tense dynamic between U of M and Ypsilanti forever anyway, because they are the kind of large economic actor in the area, and we are the poor working class community in the area. And so there's this dynamic of like a pretty extractive dynamic, both for labor and resources from Ypsilanti. So I think this was just like the final straw for making that contradiction really clear to people. And so when I'm knocking doors and talking to neighbors, data centers come up all the time and they're furious at U of M. So I'm not sure what their propaganda campaign is going to be to try to sell this, but they're kind of too late at this point. They've been it's
Yeah.
been poison pills. Like people here
Right.
are going to fight it really hard. So the only reason why I'm able to do anything at the council level is because of the fierce advocacy going on in the city by the residents.
Yes. Well, that was my next question, Amber, is I talk to certain candidates who feel like they kind of have to play it safe or play both sides on the data center issue, or sort of say, well, these are inevitable. We just have to find a safe way to do it. But when I talk to people, which I do all over the state, it's a very, very different sentiment, and it's not inevitability. So, when you go door to door, what are some things that people say? What are some things that voters say? And when you talk about your work around moratoriums and, you know, um, some of the things you shared with me about the purpose of this specific hyperscale AI data center, what do you hear from people?
It's all over the place, but I mean, as far as how people talk about this issue, it's just overall people are upset and don't want it to happen, and they feel that U of M and Ann Arbor are taking advantage of us and using us as their bedroom community for their affordable housing, their affordable labor, and now as a place to kind of dump their environmental, disaster upon. So. Yeah, doors are interesting and different all the time. I did meet one supporter of data centers, but that person worked at DTE. So,
Yeah,
uh, but
conflict of interest.
yeah, it's an 80-20 issue. It's the most bipartisan issue at this point. So what I would say to other electeds and people that are in kind of like official capacities, like you can't go wrong standing firm against the AI data center build out. Like it's so there's the consensus is real. So there's that. And then I think just for a lot of folks in Ipsy, we know that we need to reject the tech oligarchy's dystopian future for us.
Yeah.
The future of poisoned rivers and fish and unbreathable air. And a lot of people here have dedicated their lives to fighting for a future on offer that our oligarchy does not, really offer us anything. So I think a lot of us understand that the people in power are willing to incinerate the world because they're stupid enough to believe that they can escape the flames.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I think that Ypsilanti community is a fighting community because we're very well educated, we're well informed and active, but we're also working class and poor. So we understand that we're kind of the ones that are on the menu if we don't fight back. And so people here have been doing a lot of work to try to fight these existential threats and are quite courageous. So that only gives me more bravery to do the same. Um, and yeah, we need to reject these terrible power dynamics that exist in the world because it doesn't. I think one thing that's interesting is that it's a very US situation right now. Like other places in the world are not dealing with data centers the same way as we are. It's really like I guess, for example, like China regulates the shit out of AI data centers. So people in China don't feel the same way as we do in the US. The government directly limits what percentage of the total energy can be used for data centers to prevent the out of control speculative growth that is happening with the US right now. And the government owns the entire energy sector, so it's publicly owned and democratic. And it's not based on short-term profits. They're building more renewable energy than the rest of the world combined. Yeah, because their aim is not to be focused on short-term profits, but rather for, sustainability, renewable things like that. So yeah, it's just kind of always like helpful to put in perspective that this is not something that is inevitable, that we just have to accept. This is a political decision, and it will take political will to stop it.
Mm, mm. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's so important for people running for office, and it also is like illuminating of how completely out of tune a lot of high level political operatives are from the constituents who put them in the place that they're in. Because this is a winning issue. This is 80-20, like you said, and people are opposing these things from every possible angle. So I love that you're going door to door and you're hearing directly from the people. And you're speaking to some sad but familiar economic and environmental justice issues that have been perpetuated in Southeast Michigan for, generations. And
Absolutely.
the people of Ypsi are so valiant, and it's such an inspiring place. And like you said, working class solidarity is a very, very powerful thing. Um, so I'm curious, you talked about the big issue and did so eloquently, and thank you again for your work on behalf of the people there. But I'm curious what other issues around clean water, such as PFAS and microplastics, water affordability, um,
Mhm.
you know, what are you hearing from people as you're going door to door? What issues have you seen with your own experience in your eyes and ears in Ypsi and Southeast Michigan?
So before I pivot to the question that you asked, that was great. I just want to mention one issue that's very important, which is because of the fierce opposition to the Los Alamos data center project, they're now pivoting to proposing it from moving it to from this park to moving it to West Willow, which is a historically Black neighborhood. And it's not lost on many of us that this is, very much an environmental justice and environmental racism issue, and that the university believes that there may be less opposition from West Willow, but that's not the case. That community has started activating around this issue too. And so we need to combine forces to prevent this from happening to West Willow.
Mm,
And for your question about other relevant water issues in the area, I mean, one thing that has been a big sore spot in our community in Ypsilanti is a piece of land about 40 acres large that called Water Street. It is adjacent to our downtown, and it is riverfront public lands. It also has a history of being kind of like a indigenous trading area, and there's recorded over 100 years of indigenous burial sites in Water Street. And so this has been kind of a contentious dynamic where there's you know, interests and agendas from certain actors that really want to privatize the whole thing and try to make it so that we can get I don't know, a new tax base out of it. But the community has put in millions and millions and millions into this property um, because it was eminently domained by a council in the year 2001 for redevelopment. Then the developer fell through, so now we pay a millage to pay down our debts upon it. In addition to that, we've used federal and state funding through millions to clean it up because it's polluted. There are PCBs and other heavy metals there. There is a lot of PFAS in the river, as there is in most Michigan, streams and rivers. And there's been, because of the cleanup process, also new issues with like clear cutting as well. So this has been a very contentious site, both for kind of like the symbolic nature of the interest of capital, trying to like just sweep away all the indigenous history, as well as the environmental issues for maximum profit, and the community pushing back on that as well. So that is relevant to the conversation about water in Ypsilanti. And I think the conversation around that needs to not be ignored and swept away, as along with literal encampments of unhoused people that also live in this property, because again, we are a poor and working class community, and people have been suffering the housing crisis here. And so there are encampments in Ypsilanti, and some are even in and around these areas as well. So it affects the wildlife there, people on the land, the historical nature of the land, and also the environmental factors like the water and the rewilding of this land. As many trees are there now, and all the wildlife. The belted kingfisher lives there now. Belted kingfishers need a mile of riverway access in order to have a habitat. And we have multiple belted kingfisher now, but if we clear cut this forest, they will go away as well.
mm. Mm, powerful. These narratives are, hyper local and very much about the present moment, but also they tell the story of our past and give us an opportunity to reshape the future with justice in mind and healing in mind. Um, So, Amber, I know that you're busy, and it was important to me to be able to talk to you before the primary. Um, so maybe we could pick this up and have a longer conversation at another time. But for now, how about some parting thoughts? Anything inspiring around what you see in terms of Michiganders standing up and working for clean water and the human right to clean, affordable drinking water? Any calls to action you have for people and any promises you want to make if you're elected mayor?
Those are big questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm forever inspired by the bravery of people in Michigan taking on Line 5.
Mm,
We need to regroup around this issue as there's been, new factors in with the outgoing Whitmer administration. And we have to know that, like you said in the beginning, Seth, that it is really the small moments that fractal outwards. So, whatever you can do in your neighborhood, in your local community to support efforts for creating a wet meadow or doing a cleanup of a, park or supporting wildlife and people in, your areas where there might be rewilding forests. I think those efforts inspire people to become braver and take on the biggest fights that we have, which is taking on the state government to actually protect us from the tech oligarchy build out of data centers, etc. So I'm hopeful that with efforts like yours and in my community too, we'll be able to get there.
me too. I share that hope. So thank you for your work on city council. Primary in your campaign running for mayor is Tuesday. And can you give us that website one more time?
Yeah, it is Amber, the number four, thepeople.com. I'm also on social media, Instagram, Blue Sky, Facebook, TikTok, amberforthepeople.com or Amber for the People. Thank you so much.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Amber. Keep up the good
Bye-bye.
work.